You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
At 53, I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 38 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, let's do this. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Monday, December 2nd, 2024. I am your host, Gary Harris. I got my main man, Chase Brumfeld, in the studio, in the control room, manning the controls, taking your phone calls this morning on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline at 205-342-9904. And we are ready to rock and roll for this first week of December. And believe it or not, in the snap of a fingers, the college football season, the regular season, other than Army versus Navy, is over. And we've got conference championship games, then the selection of the college football playoff members, and then the CFP. Because time flies when we play college football. You wait, it seems like, for months, and then I always say this, it gets to August, and then you roll over to September and the games begin. And before you know it, they are over. High school wise, the same thing. We are down to the state championship games beginning on Wednesday in Birmingham with the Class 7A game. And we've got 14 teams left in high school football, 2 in each classification. And we're going to start crowning state champions. 7A, 6A, 5A, 4A, 3A, 2A, and 1A. And one of the teams that are left, Tuscaloosa Academy, will play Reeltown in the Class 2A state championship game. I'm going to go over the state championship pairings. I'm going to recap the Saturday in college football. I am going to talk Bama basketball. I'm going to take your phone calls. We're going to go in depth on the Iron Bowl. We got a heck of a show lined up, and I'll run it down for you in just a second. First, though, I need to let you know, as always, this hour of the Gary Harris Show is being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Member-owned and not-for-profit, it really is just a better way of banking. I encourage you to find out more at alabamacu.com. That's alabamacu.com. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, let me bring in my main man, Chase Brumfeld, because the weekend is in the rearview mirror, and it was rivalry Saturday, and we saw, I think, in my lifetime, I've never seen a rivalry Saturday, including the Iron Bowl, where there were more kind of dust-ups, where there were more incidents from the flag planting issues with Ohio State and Michigan and Florida State to other games where there were, some incidents or pushing, shoving, including the Iron Bowl, which traditionally has probably been one of the most cleanly played rivalries. And it was not anything horribly out of line, but there was, an incident on the sideline with Devontae Smith from Alabama and Lambert Smith, the wide receiver from Auburn. And that led to a little bit of a fracas and a couple of unsportsmanlike penalties on Alabama. I don't know how Auburn didn't get one in that situation. But and then after the game, there was some pushing and shoving and name calling and that kind of stuff. Much worse in the Michigan and Ohio State game, where pepper spray was actually used by police on players from both teams to disperse a situation where Michigan and Ohio State players got into it big time. Michigan beat Ohio State. It was an emotional game. It was a very disappointing loss for the Buckeyes. and Michigan did the thing with the flag where they went to plant it at midfield, and you know what? It just it led to a problem. Chase, what did you think of rivalry Saturday? I mean, the intense competition is great. What it means for these schools and these fan bases is, it's another year of bragging rights for the winner, and it's a year of wait till next year for the losers. And we get that, but did you notice all of the extracurricular that went on around many of these rivalry games?
Gary, did I? I couldn't even get throughout the day without my Twitter blowing up with Florida State. I even saw North Carolina.
I didn't mention that one. You're right. Yeah. North Carolina, North Carolina State. That might have been the nastiest of all of them.
Yeah,
that was really. What I guess is the good news is that with all of these dust-ups and like I said, it's pretty bad when pepper spray gets used, but at least there was just no full-fledged brawls where they got completely out of control. But there were still some situations there. So you, as someone who just was sitting at home watching the games, it registered with you, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. It brought a new meaning to rivalry. I just thought, people don't really like each other in these games, but it was just serious. I think the one that really scared me, and you said it, was the Ohio State-Michigan game. Like, it was crazy because there were clips coming out from every angle of it, and it just got crazier and crazier.
Yeah, it did. It really did. But I'll tell you what, as far as the Iron Bowl is concerned, and Alabama fans are when they got up Sunday morning to go to church, they got up with a little extra pep in their step, and Auburn fans probably got up with a little more of, oh man, I really don't feel like going to church today and facing my Alabama friends. I really feel like getting out of this bed. 28-14. Interesting game, I thought. It was an unusual game. I said this on Saturday night on TV, in that I thought Alabama probably should have won it by more. But at the same time, Auburn had some opportunities in the first half to have gotten points. Alabama had 3 turnovers in the first half. Really amazing that you'd have 3 turnovers. And you've got a situation where you're up 14-6, and Alabama had 3 turnovers. Ryan Williams dropped a touchdown pass from one of the prettiest throws that Jalen Milrose ever made on a deep ball that hit him right in the hands. And then in the second half, Alabama comes out and scores its first 2 possessions. It's 28-6 in the third quarter, and it's looking like it's going to be a rout. And then Auburn's inside their 10-yard line, and that's when the play happened, when they tried to throw out a little swing pass. The receiver dropped it, but the wide receiver for Auburn, who had a really nice game, DeAndre Lambert-Smith, tied up with Devontae Smith from Alabama and tried to kind of drive him off the field and wouldn't let him go. And he responded over on the Auburn sideline, and then they got into it, and Malachi Moore came over to help, and there was a fracas, and Malachi Moore and Devontae Smith got called for unsportsmanlike. And Keandre Lambert-Smith, who precipitated or began the incident, didn't get anything. And that turned into a penalty and gave Auburn field position after they were backed up with would have been a 2nd and 10 inside their 10. And they got a first down, and give them credit. They hit a pass on the sideline to the tight end, and then Cam Coleman, who's a really good player, beat Xavier Brown for a touchdown, and they went for 2 and got it. And it was 28-14. And from that point on, Alabama was just kind of trying to get the game over with. So Auburn avoided getting blown out because Alabama was clearly the team. But at the end of the day, Alabama gets the win. They finished 9-3 in the regular season. And now, yes, we will discuss their playoff possibility. Right now, to me, it looks like Alabama's going to get in. That's just my opinion. And now, there's certainly a lot of pushback to that by people, on the national scene that don't want to see Alabama in. There's a lot of momentum from the media for South Carolina. we'll cover that. But anyway, great Saturday of football. All right, if you want to get involved in the program, and I know we got some phone calls waiting to go with several callers. You guys hold tight. The next segment's all phone calls. We're going to start getting to them. We've got Tom, we've got Jim, we've got Corey, we've got Q06. We'll get to you guys. So stay tuned. Phone calls are coming up next here on the Gary Harris Show.
On the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Monday morning. The drought has receded a bit, but is still covering West Alabama. Most of the area abnormally dry, but portions of Green, Hale, Lamar, Perry, and Pickens are in moderate drought, with most of Marengo County still in extreme drought. We could get some help with up to 2 inches of rainfall latter part of this week into the weekend. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time.
Experience holiday cheer at Tanger Outlets with savings up to 70% off your favorite brands. From fragrances to accessories and the latest styles. Discover the best gifts for everyone on your list. Save big at Nike Factory Store, Michael Kors, Under Armour, Coach, Polo Ralph Lauren, Kate Spade New York, and so many more. Unwrap the best at Tanger Outlets. Hundreds of brands, endless gifting options. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi today and visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Mostly sunny today, the high 49. Another freeze tonight, clear with the low at 26. Tomorrow, sunny and cold, the high 44. Then for Wednesday, increasingly cloudy, a chance of light rain Wednesday night, the high Wednesday at 53. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 38 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show. On your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:18. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Let's start knocking out these phone calls. Tom is going to lead us off. We're going to get to Corey. We're going to get to Jim. We're going to get to Q06. Good morning, Tom.
Gary, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. It was a beautiful weekend. Tom, you still there?
I think we had lost Tom.
All right, Tom, call back in. I don't know what happened. Let's go to Jim. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, here's what I think is going to happen. I mean, this is my opinion, being a Bama fan. You know, based on who's playing best right now, I think South Carolina, this is assuming Miami drops out, okay? That South Carolina will be ahead of Alabama. They could be 11 and 12. Now, of course, when the Big 12 champions determine, they're going to knock the 12 team out of the way. All right. But let's just say that happens, that they're 11 12. Doesn't mean, even though their seasons are over with, regular season, doesn't mean that Alabama can't flip-flop the following week, because it's going to depend. If Georgia beats Texas, Alabama's best win will now be against the SEC champion who's getting a bye. If Clemson loses, South Carolina's victory is watered down a little bit. So they could actually be one spot ahead of Alabama this week. And depending, like I say, on the
yeah, I agree with your line of thinking 100%, except for I don't think they're going to be ahead of Alabama tomorrow night. I think Alabama's going to be ahead of South Carolina. We'll see.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, well, I'm just, South Carolina's won 6 straight games. Alabama got blew out.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just disagree with you. I think Alabama will be ahead of South Carolina tomorrow night. That's just my opinion, and your opinion are different. I see your logic. Listen, I've read all the South Carolina propaganda now for more than 24 hours. Everybody's out there saying everybody is a general term. Most people are out there pushing South Carolina to be ahead of Alabama. So I get it. I see that angle. I know they're hot, but I think if the resumes are very similar. Alabama lost to Oklahoma and Norman and lost to Vanderbilt and Nashville, and they beat both of those teams in those venues. But they also got blown out at home by Ole Miss. They lost to LSU at home. Alabama blew out LSU. So you can make a case for each team. So in that case, the head-to-head has to be, to me, what trumps everything else. If one resume was completely better than the other, then I don't think head-to-head's the number one factor. But I think basically these teams are even. They've got similar record. To me, it really matters what happened when they played each other. And Alabama won the game.
Well, head-to-head, it's going to make a difference sometimes. But this is how I've always felt. Whether okay, head-to-head, and you win a close game at home, I don't hold it against the team you beat as bad as if they lost their game at home against you. It was a close game, and because home field advantage does mean something. But anyway, here's the other thing. I guess about Devontae Smith and all. I guess they don't learn about, they can hurt the team by losing their tempers, he took his helmet off. After they were separated, he took his helmet off. He's running around the field. There's a coach that he brushed aside. And it's just like, but what can you do? If you make them run laps, they're going to transfer, That's because that's how college football is now. So I don't know what a coach can do to discipline, someone, keep them, when they're going to turn around and say, okay, I quit. I'm going somewhere else, But like I say,
well, I'm sure they'll address it at the same time. He lost his cool, but the Keandre Lambert-Smith, the Auburn wide receiver, precipitated the incident. He started. And the fact that
once they're separated, and he's out in the field and he's still running around taking his helmet off and just pitching a fit.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying the Auburn kid should have gotten a penalty too. That's all that I'm saying. It shouldn't have been just on Alabama. It should have been unsportsmanlike on both sides. And if you're not going to throw anybody out of the game, then they should have canceled each other out. No way should Auburn get 15 yards when they both were heavily involved.
Yeah,
and then the Lambert-Smith kid was involved in an incident after the game with Alabama players. That's all that I'm saying.
Official's hand. Don't put it in the official's hands to make a right.
No, I'm with you. I thought he got carried away. He lost his cool. I'll give you that. No, all I'm saying is I didn't think that Alabama deserved the unsportsmanlike. And Auburn didn't get one. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, because the kid continued to block him and would not let him go all the way basically into the wall next to the stands. And he did lose his cool after that. But it's easy for you and I to sit here and say, don't lose your cool. You and I didn't get driven into the wall. I mean, I agree with what I'm saying.
Once you're separated, though, then your senses should come to you and say, I'm hurting the team. I'm making the university look bad and everything else. But
he made a mistake. There's no doubt about it, and he got a penalty. But the Auburn player, in my opinion, should have as well. You don't have an incident like that and it all be one sided. That's my, and that was a big penalty in the game because it allowed Auburn to get a first down, and they went down and scored. And at that point in the game, they were dead in the water, I thought.
Okay, how about more? I guess he didn't. Now this wasn't as bad, but I guess he didn't learn his lessons when because he run.
No, he shouldn't have. He should not have been over there doing that either. They both deserved unsportsmanlike penalties. I've got no issue with that. I'm just saying the Lambert-Smith did as well. And the fact that Auburn didn't get one.
One more quick thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mississippi sits there right in between South Carolina and Alabama. And I know they're the odd man out because they're behind Alabama. There's no reason to prove them in front of Alabama. But they did beat South Carolina pretty bad at South Carolina. And they also beat Georgia. So if Georgia wins the SEC championship.
Oh, absolutely. If you're an Ole Miss fan, you're making a case. I agree with you 100%. And that is another difference between Alabama and South Carolina. Alabama didn't lose a home game, and South Carolina did. So, but you're right. If you're an Ole Miss fan, you're sitting there saying, well, man, maybe we ought to be that fourth SEC team. I'm with you. I think Ole Miss is in there too. And we'll see. Like you said, everybody right now just has an opinion. I think if it plays out the way, let me just say this. This is my opinion, Jim, and then I get into some other callers. Georgia, Texas, Tennessee are in. If a fourth SEC team makes it in, and maybe a fourth SEC team won't, because as you laid out, you can wind up having an extra ACC team that gets in. But if a fourth SEC team makes it, I think it's going to be Alabama. That's just the way I feel about it. Hey, thanks for the phone call. Let's get to all right, go ahead real quick. All right, well, now we had to move on. Let's get to Q06 real quick. Go ahead, Q06.
Gary, that's Q06. But anyway, good morning. How you doing?
Q06. Yeah, I know that. My bad. Hey, listen, I'm looking at you on a little screen, and it looked different. Q06, what's up, man?
Beautiful 17 degrees here in Indianapolis, Indiana this morning.
Lord.
But listen, I'm going to wrap it up real quick, Gary. You know, I went to a high school football game, and I saw sportsmanship in a championship game where kids shook hands after the game. Them days are gone, I guess. Now we want to fight after the game. We want to plant flags. You know, that really didn't give a good look. Do you agree? I mean, that wasn't a good look.
Right? Yeah, I think that they're going to have to, they being, I keep saying they, what are they, you know, they being the people that are in charge are going to have to start getting a grip on this. I'm with you, Q06. They're going to have to start. This is going to lead to a major, major incident. We already saw last week where Oklahoma high school students filed a lawsuit against Draker Packard Jr. After that, rushing the field in Norman. You've got, you know, near brawls happening after games. Yeah, they're going to people in charge are going to have to start.
I can't hear you.
Getting this in hand. I'm with you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Thank
you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Q06. All right, Corey. Sorry, my friend, we got to you, buddy. What's going on?
Hey, Gary, how you doing this morning?
Doing well, my friend.
Well, I tell you what, Kalen DeBoer managed to salvage the season by beating Auburn because there was a lot of pressure on him to win this Iron Bowl, and even though it wasn't the prettiest win, we'll take it any way we can get it. To send Auburn packing with a losing record and no bowl for them, I'll gladly take it. The thing I took away from this game was a couple of things. Auburn lost the game to me when they decided to kick the field goal and not go for the touchdown before halftime. Because if you would have made it 14-10, you would have put a lot of pressure on Alabama to have to do something coming out of the locker room when they got the ball back. And then, as far as the game goes, I just think Alabama was the more talented team. I mean, you could see it. I just think Alabama kept shooting themselves in the foot, but they were just the more talented team. So you knew if they just didn't cost themselves too much, they were going to win the game, and they did. And I was just very pleased with just the way they executed in some ways, but they found a way to win. And now I think it comes down to the ACC championship game, which I think we really need SMU to beat Clemson, because what happens is if Clemson beats SMU, that's going to put 2 ACC teams in, and if SMU beats Clemson, that'll only put 1 ACC team in the playoff. And I think that's the game we have to keep tabs on.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. And you know, there's listen. It's by no means given that Alabama's in the playoff by any means. And what Jim called and said earlier could be right. I mean, South Carolina might be ahead of Alabama tomorrow night in the playoff rankings. And if that's the case, it's going to set them up probably to be in a better position. I personally think Alabama will be ahead of South Carolina. I say tomorrow night. And I think if a fourth SEC team goes, it's going to be Alabama. But you're right. There's a chance that the SEC only gets 3 teams in. And if that's the case, then Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, none of them are going. So, yeah, there's still some concern. There's no doubt about it. You'd much rather be sitting here at 10-2. And the way it played out, if Alabama had beaten Oklahoma last week and we're playing Texas this coming Saturday in Atlanta, they're in, regardless of what happens in that game. The way it is set up now, just like Georgia. Georgia's in. Yeah, you'd like to win the SEC championship, but you're in the playoffs. That could be Alabama. That would be Alabama. So that's disappointing that they didn't handle their business against Oklahoma. At the same time, they did handle their business on Saturday, and they won the Iron Bowl, and that's 5 straight. That's 1 for the thumb. This is the longest streak that Alabama has had since Coach Bryant. And none of the players on the current Alabama roster have ever lost to Auburn. And that's a good feeling for them. And it's just the opposite down at Auburn. They don't have a single player on their roster that has ever won an Iron Bowl. So Alabama is in control right now in the state. Now you're only as good as your next game, and if you go down there next year and Auburn wins, then that's done. But for right now, you got 12 more months of being the team that's in control of the Iron Bowl, and that's a big deal and a good feeling. But it'll be a lot better season if Alabama gets in the playoff. I agree with that.
And it's the first time Alabama's had a winning record in Tuscaloosa in the Iron Bowl. Ever.
Yeah, but of course, like we talked about before, that goes back to the fact that those that were played in the late 1800s, and then they didn't bring it back to Tuscaloosa until 2000. But you're right, Auburn won it in 2000, they won it in 2002, they won it in 2004, and they won it in 2006. But since then, since 2008. Since Saban got here, Alabama's dominated the Iron Bowl. They're now 13-5 in the last 18 Iron Bowls. I think that's however many in a row in Tuscaloosa. That's 5 in a row total. So the Iron Bowl Alabama's in control of the Iron Bowl right now. Doesn't mean that Auburn can't flip the script somewhere down the line, but that's and Kalen DeBoer wins his first Iron Bowl, joining Gene Stallings and Dennis Franchione as coaches at Alabama that won their first Iron Bowl. So, yeah, a lot to celebrate, that's for sure, Corey.
One more thing. On the basketball loss, is this a hard one to swallow, or is this just you just played a good Oregon team and you move on?
Yeah, it's still a tough one to swallow. Oregon is good, and they'll be ranked this week, but they weren't ranked at the time. Alabama was a sizable favorite in the game, and you got a terrible call late in the game on the goaltending that wasn't a goaltending, and even after they went to the review, they couldn't get it right, which is ridiculous. But still, too many turnovers. And at the end of the game, you tie it up, and you let them come down and hit a little floater, and then you still got time, and Mark Sears makes a good pass to Grant Nelson for a layup, but it doesn't matter. You don't have enough time for that. He's got to either come in and get that ball shot, or he's got to get rid of the ball quicker. I mean, he's your best player. He's the guy you look to, and he made a bad play. You have to get a shot off there. They didn't even get a shot off because the layup was after the buzzer. So, yeah, I think it was you know what? They're a good team, but I still think it was a bad loss. I think both can be true. All right, thank you, Corey. We got to hit the break. We're going to come back with Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, Tider Insider TV. Also this morning, we're going to hear from Kalen DeBoer. We're going to hear from Nate Oates. And we are also going to have Casey Smith on golf at 10:30. Rodney Orr is next, right here on a busy Monday morning on the Gary Harris Show.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events, rehearsal dinners, receptions, and birthdays. They offer brunch and lunch catering. Call Brick and Spoon at 205-345-5551 for more information.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages,
or Town Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
Catch every game and every moment right here. This is your home of Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:36. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Running a little bit behind, but we had to try to get to the phone calls. And Tom, if you're listening, I'm sorry you got disconnected. Try to give us a call a little bit later on and get back on. But right now, it's time for Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, Tider Insider TV, to analyze the Iron Bowl and look ahead what what we might have for Alabama in regards to either the playoff or a bowl game. Good morning, Rodney.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well. We're hitting it hard this morning. But Alabama 28, Auburn 14 in the Iron Bowl, 5th in a row for the Crimson Tide, and means that no current player on the Alabama roster has ever lost to Auburn, and no current player on the Auburn roster has ever beaten Alabama. So I think that's noteworthy. Kalen DeBoer wins his first Iron Bowl. We'll get into all of what lies ahead in a moment. But just first, your thoughts on that 28-14 game. If you're an Alabama fan, I think you feel like you left a little bit on the bone. I think you feel like it could have been a much more one-sided game. Of course, if you're an Auburn fan, you look at the opportunities they had in the first half after 3 Alabama turnovers, gave them a chance to get more than 6 points. And they're probably saying if we had cashed in there, it might have been a different game in the other way. But in the end, it was a 2-touchdown victory for the Crimson Tide. And I thought clearly we saw that they were a better and more talented football team than Auburn.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good. Again, my first question was heading into this game, or my biggest question was, how would Kalen DeBoer pick up his team off the mat after that performance that they had at Norman, the week before? I mean, I thought it would be a real challenge because not only was that their worst performance of the year, I think you look on the other side of that, I thought Auburn's best performance of the year was against Texas A&M, the same weekend, same Saturday night. So, I really wondered what's the mental mindset of both of these teams going in, and I think Kalen DeBoer and his staff did a fantastic job of getting that team refocused, re-energized for this game. And frankly, I'm kind of like you, 4 turnovers for Alabama and still win by 2 touchdowns. I know that Auburn was really confident coming into this game. Some things that we heard that Hugh Freeze was very confident about his team's chances Saturday night. And so I look at it, and as I watch the game, clearly Alabama was, and again, I want to say this, I gave Auburn a lot of credit coming in, and I'm not trying to be negative towards their program, but I was a little caught off guard. I thought Alabama pretty much controlled the game, and I thought Auburn was extremely fortunate that it wasn't worse. Now, with all that said, too, you mentioned, that Auburn didn't take advantage of some opportunities. And I think they're still on the flip side of that. Alabama had some opportunities to do what I said, which was, put them away in a big manner. So, again, I think that, overall it was a really solid performance by Alabama.
Yeah, it was. And it's a nice way to end the regular season. And for Jalen Milroe, who anytime you're the quarterback at Alabama, Rodney, you and I have been covering it so long time, we know what goes with that. Poor performance against Oklahoma, but he bounced back with 18 of 24 passing for 256 yards, one interception. That was a tip ball. He did have a couple fumbles. One of them was his fault. One of them was not his fault. He had a couple drops, including one that would have been a touchdown to Ryan Williams, but still rushed for 104 yards and 3 touchdowns. I thought he played well in the game, and clearly when he plays well, Alabama, they're hard to beat. That's just the reality of it.
I think the positive thing about his performance was that even though he had those turnovers, he did not allow that to affect him in terms of, sometimes we've seen him go in the tank after a mistake, and that's his confidence. And I think he kept himself, and the coaching staff did a really good job of keeping him focused and confident, on the next play, because he could have tanked it. But he didn't. And he, like you said, he made several, as I pointed out in my post-game recap, he had those turnovers, but he also had several key plays that contributed to the win, had some really big runs, had some nice throws, had a couple of things go against him. Ryan Williams had a touchdown pass that was dropped. There was a fumble on a great throw that he made down the field to Ryan Williams early in the game. So all in all, again, I think he had a really good performance, and that's what Alabama needed to win this game. They had to have Milroe make plays, and he did.
All right, let's because obviously it was a big win, but Rodney, there's a lot left for Alabama, and we're not sure what it is, but we know they're going to play another game, whether it's in the bowl game or the playoff. Let's look at where we're at right now today. And the playoff rankings come out tomorrow night. I've already had one of my callers, Jim, call in and say he thinks South Carolina will be ahead of Alabama in the rankings tomorrow night. I don't. I think Alabama will be ahead of the South Carolina Gamecocks. And, you know, I spent some time yesterday now, and I don't usually do this. I kind of let things play out the way they play out. But I spent some time yesterday reading all the different scenarios, looking at all the possibilities, and it's my feeling, and I'll just try to make it simple for you, and you can react. If the SEC gets 4 teams in, and I don't think it's a given that they will, depending on what happens in the ACC championship game and possibly some other games. But if they get 4 SEC teams in, I think Alabama will be the 4th team. Obviously, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee are in. I think if there's a 4th SEC team that gets in, Alabama goes in ahead of South Carolina, and they go in ahead of Ole Miss. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think Alabama would probably be the 4th team. Again, I don't know how it's all going to shake out. Like you mentioned, the other teams, whether it's Miami or whoever, but you know, I think suddenly it's kind of strange. I just really wonder what would be said, what the narrative would be if Alabama was on the other end of this and South Carolina had beaten Alabama by a couple of points. What, you know, you had head to head. When all things are equal, and I think if you look at some of the criteria, all of the criteria that people are throwing out there that the committee is considering, it's pretty even when you look at strength of schedule and all these different things between Alabama and South Carolina. But the difference is, or the main difference is that certainly I think everyone should see is that Alabama won the game. And, you know, it's not that it was played 8 weeks ago. That doesn't really matter. It's not that South Carolina played it closer than the line, the Vegas line. That doesn't really matter. The bottom line is Alabama won the game. So I think if all things are equal, you have to look at head-to-head competition. And I know people are saying, well, you know, South Carolina's the hot team right now. They won their last 6 straight games. Well, Alabama's won 5 of the last 6, and I understand the loss to Oklahoma was embarrassing. It was a performance that probably hurts Alabama as much as anything in this consideration here. But, you know, again, see how it all plays out. Hopefully Alabama sneaks in, because I think if they do, there's a chance that you could see a real marquee matchup early in this playoff, and I think it would be good for the new format to have an Alabama-Notre Dame or maybe an Alabama-Penn State. I think that would be really attractive.
Well, I can tell you this. Andy Staples from On3 put out his bracket, and he had Alabama going to Notre Dame. Now, if you're a college football fan and that doesn't excite you, then you need to check your college football fandom, because that's a matchup I think that people would be so pumped to see, not just because it's Alabama and Notre Dame, but the fact that it's in South Bend in December, you know, in the cold weather. So, yeah, I think that would get exciting. You mentioned what would it be like had South Carolina beaten Alabama. Well, I can tell you, Rodney, what it would be like, because we saw it. When Alabama was ahead of Tennessee in the rankings, in the playoff rankings, all we heard was, well, we've already seen what would happen if these two teams played. And now all of a sudden, head-to-head's not as important, because South Carolina's the hot team. Oh, South Carolina's this, South Carolina's that. Well, Alabama beat South Carolina. And I'm with you. If you look at their resumes, they are very similar. And South Carolina's had a marvelous season. But if they're very, very close, which they are, then head-to-head should matter. But Alabama's the Yankees, and South Carolina's the Seattle Mariners. That's just, you know, in the grand scheme of things, and people want to see the Yankees get beat. And a lot of people around the country do not want to see Alabama in this playoff, Rodney. That's just the reality of it. But I do think the committee, for all their flaws, they're not perfect. I don't think that they worry about perception and what people are saying. I will give them credit for that. Would you agree?
Well, I hope so, for sure. You know, and again, I think there's been a lot of discussion about ultimately it'll come down to Alabama and Miami. And, you know, Miami only has 2 losses. I get that. I think, and I haven't looked at the resume that closely. I doubt Miami has anywhere near, well, I know they don't have anywhere near the quality wins that Alabama has. Strength of schedule, all of those things, certainly not as impressive. But I think if you look at the overall resume, Alabama probably, except the fact that they have 3 losses, could be something that would hinder that. But, you know, again, it's just going to depend on what the committee thinks if it comes down to those 2 teams. So certainly looking forward to seeing it. And again, I hope Alabama gets in. Some people say, well, they really don't deserve it. And I hear a lot of Alabama fans say that. And here's the thing I would say to that. Have you watched all these other teams play? They really don't look a lot better than Alabama for the most part. I look at Ohio State, for example. They go lose to Michigan. I look at Georgia. They got blown out by Ole Miss. Texas is a team that obviously they've made it through the season with only one loss so far. Obviously, they have the rematch with Georgia coming up. Oregon's a team that's obviously doing really well in terms of their record. But there's really, to me, Gary, I don't see any team that just jumps off the page. And I say this is the team right now that everybody has to kind of zero in on. And I look at Alabama, and I would say this. If they got in the playoffs, would they have a chance to make a run? If you want to just look at over the course of the season and say they've been really inconsistent, I get that. You could see them getting knocked out early. But then again, I think if they play up to potential, I think they could make a serious run in this playoff and potentially win it. Now, I'm not predicting that they would. I certainly, if they get in, won't be saying I think they're going to, win the thing. But I do think that potentially, if they play up to their abilities, that they could certainly make a very strong run if they got in.
Alabama is capable of beating any team in the country. I don't think that there's any doubt in my mind about that. And you're right about the playoff. Listen, I said after the loss to Oklahoma, I was disappointed. And I said then, the only focus Alabama needs to have is on the Iron Bowl. Don't need to be worried about a playoff. Obviously, you're not going to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. And I stand by that. Having said that, now that you've won the Iron Bowl, this is a 12-team playoff. There's no need to be embarrassed for wanting to see your team get in at 9-3. When you have played the caliber schedule that Alabama's played, and you've got the amount of wins they've got over teams ranked in the top 25, and you didn't lose at home. So that's just the new world we live in. Rodney, I've had to adjust. I mean, you know that. Initially, if you'd have told me before the season 9-3, I'd have said, well, you're not even going to sniff the playoff. But there's 12 teams. And the depth of teams now means that if you're a 3-loss team, you have a chance. That's just the reality of it. So if Alabama gets in, there's no need to apologize to anybody. And if they don't, Rodney, the flip side is if they don't, you live with it. If you don't make it in, then, you don't cry about it either. You say, no, we had a chance. We lost it. And if you're Alabama, you say we lost at Nashville to Vanderbilt. We lost, like you said, at Oklahoma. We had everything on the line. So you won't cry about it. But if you get in, you'll take that opportunity and you'll try to take advantage of it. That's the way I view it.
I said back in September on TiderInsider.com, if you give me a 10-2 and a guaranteed playoff berth right now, I take it immediately.
That's right. Right.
It's kind of the way it is now. And, of course, there was a lot of Alabama fans said, are you crazy? We're not going to concede losses, and I get that. But, this is it. Like you said, it goes back to this is a new day and time. I mean, 10-2 and a guaranteed playoff berth, yeah, you want to be better. But at the same time, especially with this team in a transition year, that would be – right now, 10-2 would have you in the playoffs.
Oh, without a doubt. In fact, that 10-2 would have Alabama playing Texas this Saturday for an SEC championship in Atlanta. So, missed it by a game. I don't know how we got here, but I do want to ask you about recruiting because this is where we're at. We've got we've got conference championship games coming up on Saturday. We've got college football playoff announcement coming up on Sunday. We've got signing day on Wednesday and the portal opening on Saturday as well. So again, I don't know how we got to this point, but this is where we're at. What are you looking at for signing day on Wednesday? Is Alabama going to sign most of their guys that are committed, or how's that going to look? Because it's so different now with this December signing period and all that's going on than it used to be.
Yeah, I think the one that to keep an eye on that I think he's delaying until February is 5-star offensive tackle Ty Haywood out of Denton, Texas. Unfortunately, Michigan is now a major player in the NIL. I mean, when I say major player, just to kind of clarify for people out there, you remember a few years ago when Texas A&M was spending a lot of money, and Nick Saban made the comment that they bought all their players in that great class they had that set the record. If you go by the rankings, it was the all-time top recruiting class based on points that they, give out to these teams for, judging these recruiting classes. But with that said, Michigan's kind of taken up that, seems like now they're taking on the philosophy that Texas A&M used a few years ago. They were desperate. They were struggling to get players. They weren't winning games. Now, they had a big game, obviously, the big win over Ohio State. And they lost a lot of players from their team last year. Let's be clear, not only that, but the new coach that they have. But so they decided they want to go out and buy players way over NIL market value. And that's what they've been doing. And they've turned a lot of heads. And I think I don't really know exactly what's going on with Ty Haywood. The feeling is, and I'm being told by my Texas people, that either he was approached or his family hired an NIL agent to go out and kind of seek the offers here recently. So Michigan is certainly going to be a real challenge here, I think, Gary, because, again, they're throwing out huge offers to players that they target. So that's the one I would really watch in terms of the guys that are committed. It seems like everyone else is pretty firm. I know Michael Carroll, another 5-star offensive lineman committed in this class, was here this weekend. He recently visited Colorado, which kind of created some angst among Alabama fans. But I think you can't predict what's going to happen. But I think right now it has, at least up until yesterday, seemed to be still pretty encouraging with him. Otherwise, I think everyone's pretty solid. I do think Derek Meadows, the 4-star wide receiver from Las Vegas that's committed, the feeling is he's going to flip to Alabama. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. He's a track guy. He's really talented. He's got a lot of potential. Needs to be polished up like most of them do, but he's got a lot of potential, Gary. That'd be a big flip for Alabama. Potentially others that could flip, maybe Donovan Starr, the cornerback out of Brentwood, Tennessee, who visited about 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago, whatever it was. I think he visited for the Missouri game. And he's a guy that's committed to Auburn, a 4-star cornerback that I think you watch him. Would not surprise me if he flipped. They've also been recruiting Mason Dunn out of Tupelo, another outstanding cornerback. He's rated a 3-star, but I think he's better than that. He's committed to Ole Miss. There's been some talk that the Ole Miss people really thought about 2 or 3 weeks ago he was on the verge of flipping to Alabama, and it didn't happen. I don't know that they would take both of those guys, but one of the two, certainly keep an eye on that. We'll see. Maybe there's some others that maybe Alabama pulls off a surprise that we really aren't talking about right now.
Yeah, it's just so different now with all that's going on. Recruiting is just the signing day is. I know you and I remember those February signing days where it was a party, and now it's kind of an afterthought. It's not an afterthought in the sense of your program, but you know what I mean. In terms of the publicity, it's a little bit on the back burner as compared to years past. But whatever's happening, Rodney, I know you'll have it covered at TiderInsider.com.
We'll certainly try, Gary. It's TiderInsider.com, as you mentioned, $48 a year. You get instant access with a credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check. It gives you all our premium information, but also our all sports forum. I mean, it is a great community there. A lot of exchange going on right now on TiderInsider.com.
The best. Thanks a lot, Rod.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right, 9:55. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and wrap up hour number 1, which has flown by, and we've got a lot of excitement coming up in the second hour as well. We'll be back after this.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Monday edition of The Game, we'll do the Daniel Moore good moments of the game. Alabama and Auburn. Hopefully we're recapping a victory for the Alabama Crimson Tide. We'll start at 2 p.m. We'll talk to Drew DeArmond. We'll talk to Barrett Sallee. And we'll talk to Martin Houston right here on The Game. Tuscaloosa's longest running sports show on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Your home of Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
The longest running sports program.
Or visit mezwins.com. I've got this.
No representations made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
365, 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow truck, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadways.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure you're safe on the road. Now we need your help to make sure we're safe too.
Alabama's move over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the roadside.
Your home for Alabama basketball.
Presented in part by BMW of Tuscaloosa and by Pearl River Resort in Choctaw, Mississippi.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily. Discover better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Mostly sunny today, the high 49. Another freeze tonight, clear with the low at 26. Tomorrow, sunny and cold, the high 44. Then for Wednesday, increasingly cloudy, a chance of light rain Wednesday night, the high Wednesday at 53. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 40 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the first hour. Boy, it flew by. Hour number 2, more phone calls. Casey Smith on golf at 10:30. We're going to try to get some audio from Kalen DeBoer and Nate Oates as well. We'll do our best in that regard, but we won't cut out our phone calls. In fact, we'll start off the second hour with phone calls. Tom, who got disconnected, will lead us off. So hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show is on the way.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Steve DeSager.
Sunday night in the snow, the Buffalo Bills won their 7th straight game, 35-10 over San Francisco. 49ers star running back Christian McCaffrey limped off in the first half with a PCL ligament knee injury. It could be season-ending. Philadelphia won its 8th straight game, 24-19 at Baltimore. Tampa Bay in overtime was a winner at Carolina, 26-23. And the Rams, down at halftime 6-0, wound up winning at New Orleans 21-14. Among the earlier games, Pittsburgh was a 44-38 winner at Cincinnati. Russell Wilson, 414 yards passing and 3 scores. In the NBA, Cleveland ended Boston's 7-game winning streak, 115-111. Memphis won its 6th in a row. Orlando won its 6th straight. Houston beat Oklahoma City 119-116. The late game to the Clippers, edging Denver 126-122. James Harden, 39 points.
The Alabama Securities Commission protects you from financial fraud. Anyone asking you for investment money must be licensed. You're careful with your money. Fraudsters aren't. Before you invest, call our hotline at 1-800-222-1253 to verify the licensing of the person making an offer and the product. Don't lose
for a limited time. Shop now at Dell.com/deals. That's Dell.com/deals.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
right, welcome into hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show here on Tide 100.9 FM and Tide at 12:30 a.m. WTBC. I'm Gary Harris, and we're going to get it started with phone calls. We're going to get back to Tom, who unfortunately got disconnected in the first hour, but he's back to lead us off. Good morning, Tom.
Gary, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you okay. I don't know what happened the first time, but you sound good to go this time.
Well, the volume is I've been messing with me this morning, and I'm not sure how it's coming out. And I might have to call back later. I don't know. But Gary, I was watching yesterday. I watched Philadelphia and the Baltimore Ravens. Did you watch that game?
I watched, I did. I watched, pretty much watched. I went for a walk in the second half, but I had recorded what I missed and came back and watched it. Yeah, I watched that game very closely because it's two really good teams and a lot of Alabama connections. And, yeah, I watched that game and was very disappointed in the Ravens. Now, don't get me wrong. The Eagles are good, man. The Eagles wear you down. They do what they do. But I can't figure out what Todd Monken's trying to do with Derrick Henry. I just can't figure it out. I can't. You run the ball, you get first downs, and then all of a sudden, well, let's not just throw the ball on first down or second and short, but let's throw it 40 yards down the field. And that was an interesting game. I couldn't figure out. I was really surprised that Philadelphia's physicality against a team that prides themselves in being physical. They wore the Ravens down, and they put a whipping on them, buddy.
Gary, I can't hear you. I'll call back some other time. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know what's going on with your phone, Tom. Sorry about that. But no, I did watch that game in Philadelphia. And like I said, we'll talk about the Bama in the NFL. It was another busy Sunday. But in that game, I'm very frustrated with how Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, is using Derrick Henry. All right, let's get to Ellis. Good morning, Ellis. How are you?
Burn a thumb, Gary Harris.
Yes, sir.
My voice is finally coming back from Saturday. I hollered and screamed so much, and the young man sitting beside me did the same thing till we both got headaches. I mean,
I hear you.
I done some hollers. You know, every time they got the ball, I with my mouth was hollering out. So yeah, it was pretty awesome to be there and see it. And congratulations to Coach DeBoer. And congratulations to Malachi Moore being the 89th Iron Bowl, and he's the first ever player to go 5-0.
Yeah, I'm going to check that. I think Tim Smith might have played in that Iron Bowl 5 years ago too. I think Tim Smith might have joined Malachi as players that actually played in 5. And people say, well, how can you play in 5? Well, because of the new redshirt rules and something where you can play a certain amount of games or they were able. I know you're right on Malachi. I think Tim Smith might have played 5 years ago in 2020 as well, or 4 years ago, five games ago. So I'll check that. But you're right. They would be, Malachi is for sure. And I think Tim Smith might be there right there with him, guys that played in 5 in Iron Bowls and won 5 Iron Bowls. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's a pretty big accomplishment right there, I think.
It is.
I know the ball game's over with and it would have, should have, could have, but I believe if we hadn't had them turnovers and other things, I think the score would have been way different than what it was. But we had points taken away because of mistakes, but it is what it is. But all it is that we won. We won in the Boog's Law. And
yeah, that's right. And it's like I said, I'm with you. I think if you're an Alabama fan, you feel like you left some meat on the bone. Of course, if you're an Auburn fan, you look at that first half when Alabama had 3 turnovers in one half, and you had a bunch of opportunities in the red zone, and you only got 6 points. I think that there might have been a thought process there that you could have been, closer than 14-6. But the better team won. There's no doubt about that, Ellis. And as you said, it kind of puts a stamp on it now for the first time in a long time, since the 70s, that Alabama's, won 5 consecutive Iron Bowls and has an entire fifth-year senior class. Nobody on that Alabama roster has ever lost to Auburn, and as a player. So I think that's pretty sweet for them. And conversely, on the other side, Auburn players have never beaten Alabama. So there'll be a lot of pressure on them next year when the Iron Bowl's at Jordan-Hare. But it was a really good day for Alabama football. Now you just hope that you get into that playoff and you have an opportunity. That's what you're hoping for if you're an Alabama fan.
And the young man from Auburn said he wasn't going to let Jalen Milroe get past him. Well,
well, that didn't work out too well for the young DeMarcus Riddick, because not only did he say that he was faster than Milroe, and Milroe wouldn't get outside the box, and that Ryan Williams wasn't all that, and that he would never lose to Alabama. He on the first touchdown by Milroe, he was the guy in contain that Milroe blew by, and he tried to reach out and grab his jersey, and he just blew right by him. So I guess, he'll learn a lesson from that be careful what you say. And I imagine he'll probably learn from that. But, for that particular day, if you're an Auburn fan, you were, probably wishing he hadn't said that. And if you were an Alabama fan, you were certainly going to remind him of it. So that's the way it goes in rivalry games. If you're going to talk the talk and you don't back it up, then you're going to have to deal with it.
Yes, and both teams should have been penalized on that one play that was that ended off in the side there. Both should have been penalized instead of just Alabama. But
I agree. I thought it should have been unsportsmanlike. Now, what Jim said earlier, he's right. DeVonta Smith lost his cool, and Malachi Moore came over there and got involved as well. But at the same time, it's easy for us to sit here and say, keep your cool. We weren't the one that was getting blocked into the fence over there by Keandre Lambert-Smith. And, I'm with you. I thought there should have been offsetting, unsportsmanlike. And again, we never hear anything from that SEC office. They never give any kind of comments on calls. But I think that they when they review that game, they'll say, hey, you should have penalized Auburn as well there. That should have been offsetting unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. But they didn't, and it gave Auburn a little boost of momentum, and they went down and scored a touchdown and somewhat got back in the game. So disappointing.
And one more thing, go Bulldogs.
You talking about the SEC championship game?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, either way, I think that it probably would be better for Alabama if Georgia won, simply because Alabama beat Georgia, and plus Texas in their first year. A lot of people don't want to see them win the SEC. Hey, you like your print, Ellis?
Oh, love it. I'm fixing the carrot to the Hobby Lobby down here where I lived at Frame.
All right, buddy. Good to talk to you.
All right, roll tide.
All right, it's 12 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock here on the Gary Harris Show. And the YMCA of Tuscaloosa, this is a good time to join. Why not go ahead and get started on your New Year's resolution before it's the new year? Why not go ahead and get started working out now, so that when you're eating all this great holiday food and going to all these holiday parties, at least you're kind of getting a jump start on your fitness, and you won't walk in there in January feeling like you're way behind the eight ball. The YMCA of Tuscaloosa has so much to offer, and I would love for you to check it out, 2300 13th Street, downtown. All right, let's see where we stand on the call list. All right, let's go ahead and get one more phone call before we get to the break, because we have got them lined up, and we'll take more calls on the other side. We may not be able to get to in there our coach's audio, but let's get to Philip. He's next up. Good morning, Philip.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that we nearly saw Saturday that I wish could have worked out. Had C.J. Dupree held on to that ball, that would have been one of the greatest catches I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, because he had that doggone ball. I went back and watched the replay because I thought at the time, it was a great effort. And he had the ball because the kid never turned his head around, but he was on him, and the ball hit his hands. And as he was going down, he shifted it to his right hand, and he had it gripped in his right hand, and it was going to be a catch. And at the last second, the kid from Auburn, I don't even know if he saw the ball. He just kind of slapped his hand down and knocked it out of Dupree's hand. You're right. That would have been a fantastic catch. That would have been an NFL tight end type catch right there.
I think it would have been one of the greatest catches I've ever seen because, you're talking about a guy that is not a Ryan Williams type. He's a guy that sort of lumbers down the field, and he had tight coverage on him, and it was just
He did.
It would have been a shiver.
Yeah, it was a great play in that the kid did have tight coverage, although, again, he never turned his head around. I mean, he had his back to the ball, but he was right on. A lot of times when Alabama's made that play, they've called it interference. But Milroe made a good throw and gave Dupree a chance. And Dupree, as you said, almost hauled that ball in, and that would have been a great catch because unfortunately, we saw Ryan Williams drop a throw that was as good a throw as Jalen Milroe's ever made in his life.
Oh man, he did, but.
On that deep ball, I love Ryan Williams, but I mean, my gosh, I had some people ask me, "What did the defender tip it?" And I said, "No, the defender didn't tip it. It hit him right in the hand. He just dropped it. Unfortunately,
dropped it. Yeah. But anyway, glad Alabama won, and we'll just see what happens as it goes on. I'm glad you got a positive feeling. It sort of makes me feel better. I just think the Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's all you can do. And I don't know that I'm right. But I did spend some time yesterday reading the different scenarios and looking at it, and it's just my feeling, my opinion. I'm not sure the SEC will get 4 teams in. But if the SEC gets a 4th team in, I think it will be Alabama. I really do feel that way. So we'll see.
Makes me feel good. I appreciate it, Gary. Have a good day.
All right, Philip. Thank you. Let's try to get to while we got people on hold. Let's go ahead and I tell you what, Cowboy and Danny, you guys hold. Let me hit my break on time, and we will come back on the other side with Cowboy and Danny. We got Casey Smith on golf coming up at 10:30. As I said, if we get an opportunity to get some DeVore sound and some
Lowe's Pros. Valid in-store only. More terms and restrictions apply. Visit Lowe's.com/terms or Pro Desk for details.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Mostly sunny today, the high 49. Another freeze tonight, clear with the low at 26. Tomorrow, sunny and cold, the high 44. Then for Wednesday, increasingly cloudy, a chance of light rain Wednesday night, the high Wednesday at 53. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 43 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:18. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Let's get these phone calls rolling as we're going to get to Cowboy. Hey, Cowboy, good morning.
Doing, Gary? Gary?
Doing well, my friend.
Well, I was hearing you breaking down some of this playoff scenario. I talked to somebody yesterday that was on the staff of another SEC team, Georgia, and he's thinking they're trying to promote South Carolina. Do you think they're going to weigh South Carolina's victory over Oklahoma in Norman?
I think they're going to weigh a lot of things. I think they're going to weigh the fact that Alabama got beat in Norman and South Carolina handled Oklahoma and Norman. I think they're going to weigh the fact that Alabama got beat in Nashville by Vanderbilt and South Carolina beat Vanderbilt in Nashville. I think they're going to weigh the fact that South Carolina lost at home to LSU and Alabama blew out LSU in Baton Rouge. I think they're going to weigh the fact that Alabama didn't lose a home game and South Carolina lost too, including getting blown out by Ole Miss at home. And I think they're going to weigh the fact that when they played each other head-to-head, Alabama beat South Carolina. So that's, I think the resumes are very similar. But I think in the end, when you weigh all the resumes, then the head-to-head should be the trump card. And Alabama beat South Carolina, whether people like it or not, whether people were, South Carolina's hot or not, the two teams played on the field. Also, Alabama blew out Missouri 34-0, and South Carolina, 'was very, very, very fortunate to to beat Missouri. So that's my reasoning. I think if it comes down to those two teams, in my opinion, Alabama deserves the nod. If they don't get in, they don't get in, and you got to live with it. Yeah. But that's the way I see it. And if you're Ole Miss fan, you got a case if you're Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss went to South Carolina and blew them out. So there's going to be somebody left out here. Maybe all three are left out. I don't think there's a guarantee, Cowboy, that the SEC gets 4 teams in, man, to be honest with you. But if they do, I think Alabama's that 4th team. That's just my opinion.
I was sure pulling for Dabo Saturday. I thought they had at least a field goal, and they were going down the field looking like they might get a touchdown, and then that kind of sprint out play, I thought the play right there for them was they had a timeout in the bag, was maybe call a running play that South Carolina wasn't looking for, and it might have gone in the end zone. But, first game I coached would be my first, I guess. But, I don't know if Clemson can, within a week, learn how to stop that Gus Bus offense SMU runs. Because I've been telling people last month, they got Nick Marshall clone at quarterback. They got a Trey Mason clone at running back, and Sammy Coates clone at wide receiver like Auburn had in 2013. And that thing's just hard to stop when you don't ever see it the first time, And that's what they They got a pretty good defense.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an interesting. Tomorrow night's going to be really interesting with the latest rankings, and then obviously Sunday. After all these championship games and Army Navy's played, it's going to be a lot of interest in seeing how this plays out. And as I said earlier, Cowboy, if Alabama gets in, man, you're thrilled and you're excited, and you would look forward to an opportunity to go to Notre Dame or Penn State or Ohio State or wherever you would go. And if you don't get in, then you just got to live with it. I mean, that's just the reality. When you lose at Vanderbilt and you lose after losing those 2 games at Vanderbilt and Tennessee, you still have a shot to control your own destiny. And you lose at Oklahoma, you take it out of your hands. And now, you could easily be playing in Atlanta for an SEC championship and automatic spot, and then already know that you're in. But you don't have that anymore, so you're going to have to live with it. And I hope they get in, but they may not.
Yeah, it's amazing. Kind of something that's kind of getting put to the back burner was we had some great basketball out of the Alabama basketball team, out there in Las Vegas. Lost a tough one the other night to Oregon, but they did well in that tournament. I thought it was a NCAA kind of style tournament, What did you think?
All right. I thought that Alabama, that was a great experience to go out there. They got I think they got $1.25 million for NIL. They would have got $1.5 million had they won it. They won 2 really good games. I was disappointed, and I was working Saturday, as you know, and I didn't get home until the second half of that game. By the time I left the TV station and put my piece together for the sports, but I recorded the first. But I did catch the end of the game, and I thought that as I said earlier in the show, Oregon's a good team, but it's still a disappointing loss because they'll be ranked this week. But Oregon was unranked. Alabama was a sizable favorite in the game, and while I give Oregon credit and I do think they're a good team, it's still, to me, a disappointing loss. I mean, I think Alabama should win that game. And when you look at what is happening with this Alabama team, way too many turnovers. They're not shooting the 3-point shot consistently. And Mark Sears, who is, a preseason National Player of the Year candidate, has struggled, in my opinion. And even at the end of the game there, after Alabama fights back to tie it up, Oregon takes a 2-point lead. You got 4.5 seconds or so, I think, and Sears has got the ball in his hands, and he made a nice pass to Grant Nelson, but it's too late. I mean, you've got to get a shot attempt there, and Alabama didn't get a shot attempt. I mean, the layup was after the buzzer. So I don't know. He's not playing, to me, the way that he's going to need to play for this team. And now you've got Reitzel going down with what appears to be a serious injury. I guess we'll get a report here in the next day or two on whether or not he's coming back. It looks like it might be an Achilles situation. Now you're going to get Youngblood back here soon. I don't know if he'll play against North Carolina, But there's a real possibility this Alabama team's going to have 3 losses here in the next few days. And so they're a good team, but they're trying to figure it out is what it looks like to me.
Yeah. Well, all right. It's going to be interesting to see. I noticed Saturday, I think CBS's graphics and broadcast is better than ABC's. What do you think? I flipped over Notre Dame USC on a commercial break. The CBS, the graphics seem better. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, all I can tell you is I missed the CBS SEC game of the week. I miss it. I don't mind that, SEC and on ABC and ESPN, you got all the games, but I missed having that one standalone game. And I know SEC and CBS misses it. The Big Ten's a great league, but that game doesn't have near the cachet that it had. I thought that, and I understand money rules today, but boy, I'm like you. I thought that was special having that CBS at 2:30 SEC game every week, man. I just thought it made the SEC stand out. It was, I miss it. I'm with you. I miss it. Yeah. I miss it. I miss it a lot.
I guess what probably cost them the contract was they didn't want to do that night deal. Probably, that's where the big game has become a night game. So,
yeah. All right, pal. Got to move on.
Be good, buddy.
Thanks, Cowboy. All right, let's see who we got next, Chase. We got Danny. Hey, good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Gary. How you doing?
Hey, man. Good to hear from you.
Hey, if I'd have told you before the game we'd have had 4 turnovers and Ryan Williams would have dropped a touchdown and had a fumble and a slip down, and you'd have thought we'd have got beat, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I said I said it at least been a go down to the wire game. I mean, I'm with you. It's amazing the number of and the penalties too, which has plagued this team all year. I can't remember. Maybe there's a game or two, but I can't remember very many games where Alabama was the least penalized team, and they weren't on Saturday either. If you'd have told me, 4 turnovers, 3 in the first half, 4 turnovers, penalties, like you said, Ryan Williams drops a touchdown, fumbles another ball after a catch. Flips on a screen, although he made a nice catch and recovery on that play, and really did not have one of his better games. And you'd win the game by 14 points, and probably should have won it by more. Yeah, it's you're right. It's kind of odd. I don't know if that speaks to Alabama's talent level or that Auburn's not a good team or what. But if you look at those numbers by themselves, you would have said, "Boy, Alabama would have been in trouble." Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, Miller has 28 carries and Hunter has 13. I said if he carried the ball 25 times, we'd be in trouble. And he carried it as many times. But talking about that penalty, Gary, Devontae Smith was very upset. I get it. Because my thing is, if you can't tackle somebody out of bounds, you shouldn't be able to block somebody out of bounds. But did the Alabama coaches...
No, Danny, I'm with you. Like I said, I've already said for the record, if you're going to call unsportsmanlike on Alabama, 2 players there, then you've got to call one on DeAndre Lambert-Smith because he precipitated the whole incident. He absolutely
sure did.
It was a wide receiver screen. The kid dropped the ball. He was blocking on the perimeter against Devontae Smith, and he engaged him. He locked him up, and he drove him all the way to the fence. And to sit there and say, the kid lost his cool. Yeah, he did lose his cool. But that's easy for us to say don't lose your cool. We weren't the one that were getting driven into the fence. I'm with you 100%. It absolutely should have been a unsportsmanlike on both sides. They should have canceled out, and Auburn should have had 2nd and 10 from the 6-yard line or wherever they were instead of 1st and 10 from the 20-something yard line. I'm with you. I thought horrible officiating in my opinion.
It was a bad. It changed. Auburn had a new life after that because they were supposed to give up. They were really supposed to give up down 28-6 or 20, whatever it was.
Oh yeah, if they wind up having a punt there from inside their 10, then Alabama's probably going to go ahead and make it 35-6, and the round is on. I'm with you. But again, I'm so used to poor officiating now that it's just you go into every game just understanding. And I've said before, I know it's a tough game to officiate, and and I admire these guys for doing it. But the fact that they bite so many calls, even when they have an opportunity to review them or talk about them, how in the world? And the only thing I can figure is that it's on Auburn's sideline, and because Alabama players have to run over there, that they said, well, we got to get this to Alabama. But to not call that both ways, just absolutely ridiculous, man. Just ridiculous.
Well, I saw some league, Gary, if you don't think the officiating, and I'm an umpire in baseball and a basketball official, and I usually take up for the referees, but if you think it's so bad, if you watch a game like Georgia Tech, where I kind of was pulling for Georgia Tech because I thought it would have helped us.
Oh, I was pulling for Georgia Tech 100%. Absolutely, I think it's just bad when you don't. I mean, we get worked up because it affects Alabama. But watch a game and not have a dog in the fight, and look how bad it is. And it's I know.
Very discouraging. It really is. But if you really want to get your blood pressure up, listen to the national people on the weekend trying to keep Alabama out of the playoffs.
I know.
Unbelievable.
There are a lot of agendas out there. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of agendas.
The new thing is Miami's losses now are close losses. And the new thing is South Carolina's won 6 straight. And they can do all the numbers they want to. But the AP poll and the coaches poll, they have it just about right with us being 11. And I know the committee's not going to rubber stamp that, because if it did, they wouldn't have to have a committee. But if we forget one thing, who's in charge of the committee this year? Michigan's athletic director. And he's going to wave that Big Ten flag. And I'm like you, I think it's going to be 4, 3 at SEC, 2 ACC, Notre Dame boys, and 1 Big 12. And Alabama finishing 4th in the SEC is going to get left out. And I don't know how Miami or Clemson or, I know the winner of that game goes SMU. I think SMU needs to win and just stay up there in front of us. And don't, because if they lose, they might put them in that spot where we're going to be at.
Well, it's going to be a lot of drama for sure. Hey, Danny, I got to run, man.
100 new models in stock and over 60 pre-owned vehicles. Remember, we'll buy your car even if you don't do business with us. 3200 Skyland Boulevard, East Tuscaloosa. Online at mercedesoftuscaloosa.com.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
All right, 10:35. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. It's time for Casey Smith on golf. We'll talk the latest on PGA Tour and more, and also get to this Casey's thoughts on the football situation, the playoff, and where Alabama stands. Good morning, Casey.
Good morning, Jerry. Hope you had a great weekend.
I did, man. I think all Alabama fans are their weekend on Sunday when they woke up to go to church and do whatever they do was a lot more pleasant than Auburn fans. That's the nature of that rivalry. So let's just go ahead and start with football. We'll get to golf. We don't know what's going to happen. I think, as I've said, I believe if the SEC gets 4 teams in, which I don't think is a given, but I think if they do get 4 teams, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, I think the 4th will be Alabama and not South Carolina or Ole Miss. We will see, but that's the way I read the tea leaves right now. What about you?
I agree. I saw Lane Kiffin's pitch yesterday and Shane Beamer's pitch yesterday, but ultimately it's head-to-head. And for Shane Beamer, sorry, we beat you. And Ole Miss, we didn't really play. And I think, looking straight at the schedule, if it would slot us. I think, let's just be honest, the Alabama draw is far significant due to eyeballs and attendance. The fans are going to travel. I mean, we would have an insane amount of people go if it was Alabama versus Notre Dame, which a lot of the Notre Dame have a game to play. Right now, it looks like that would be the slot. It seems like if SMU were to upset Clemson, that we're locked in for sure, but I'm starting to feel like every projection I see, and anyone that's really got some sense out there has got us in either way. And then what team shows up? I mean, this team's capable of beating anyone, obviously. And then they can also lose a game. So hasn't been our best on the road, but I would be willing to bet you that we're not going to be an underdog at Notre Dame as the 12th seed. I still think we would be the favorite. And that should tell you everything. I'm sure there's somewhere in that big boardroom where they're looking at what would the lines be as well. I mean, Vegas really doesn't miss on that. And I know it's used, the betting lines are used to get equal money on each side, but it's also an indicator of what they think the point differential is going to be. And so I bet if you really look at that, Alabama's not going to wouldn't be an underdog, but to a couple of those teams. So given that, I would say given who, as we go with our quarterback goes, he's scary. He provides a different layer of what you got to account for out there. And that's not, as Shane Beamer said, I don't think anybody wants to play South Carolina. They probably don't. They're playing really good. But I don't think anybody wants to play Alabama. And the team is, coming in there on house money thinking their season was over. So it wouldn't shock me if we got in and we won a couple games either. So, I think Alabama would be in a huge game. What a good way to put Auburn away, and maybe the loudest Dixieland delight I've ever heard.
You're right, man. It was pretty sweet, and for Alabama fans that are my age that saw Coach Bryant, win 9 in a row and go 19-6 against them, and then see from that time on it be Auburn have quite a bit of success in the Iron Bowl, including Tuberville winning 6 straight. And then Saban, did manage to go 12-5 against them, but it wasn't really toward the end of the rivalry where he got his thumb on them, and to win 4 in a row and now to make it 5 in a row with DeBoer winning his first is pretty sweet for Alabama fans. Let's be honest. I mean, there's a lot that you play for when you're in Alabama, including championships, but controlling the state is a big deal, particularly now with. I think with Freeze talking about how they're going to control the in-state recruiting and some things like that. At the end of the day, though, you do everything that you do, as you know, Casey, as a football program to try to get the results that you want on Saturday. And everything that you do in this state with Alabama and Auburn, at the end of the day, it all comes down to who wins that game. And Alabama's won 5 in a row now. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on Hugh Freeze next year with that game being adjourned here, don't you think?
I think it'll be a make-or-break game. And his state may be decided before that. He may be fool's gold in this role at Auburn. I think you're exactly right. We talked about it last week. Recruiting is so important, and these kids make decisions. It's day to day now. It's not. I mean, literally things are just move in real time at warp speed. That win is so big. I don't think anyone really maybe realizes how big those little things right there that you just keep control of recruiting. You keep the temperature down. You keep your class intact before the signing day. We got to get that Keelan Russell, and he just looks fantastic. And then I think this helps you maybe if you can get in the playoffs or just being in the top tier. It's got to give your team and your culture a lift, and you're able to really keep the kids you want to keep on your roster. The hardest thing I would think in college coaching right now is you're having to recruit your own kids that are guys who, need to develop, but they see playing time and money at other places that's out there. And we hear it every day now that kids that are on our team are getting recruited right now by other teams, which is insane. That's even allowed. But there's a lot of obstacles. You got to keep winning, and you can't lose to your rival. And if you don't think it meant anything, go look at all those rivalry games and all those flag plants and all those fights. It means a lot. And if you're on the losing end of it, I mean, there's real discussion from people I know that Hugh Freeze is safe, but if that recruiting class were to fall apart, he would get fired. That's right. Literally, well, I know someone that's involved in it that he would definitely get fired if if this recruiting class fell apart. They're not sold on him.
You're right. You're right about that. You're 100% right, Casey. All right, let's change gears to golf. And we discussed this last week, but you track and a lot of former Bama guys playing professional golf on the different tours, many of them on the PGA Tour. And between trying to, have a strong fall run and guys trying to get tournaments in on medical exemptions and different ways to be on the PGA Tour in 2025, how many guys is Bama going to have out there full-time on the tour? And how many guys will at least have some status on the PGA Tour in 2025?
Yeah, it's a good question. And Justin Thomas is obviously locked in. Seth Straka, Birmingham ties locked in. Davis Thompson, Auburn ties locked in. Nick Dunlap, he's in. Lee Hodges, he's in. Pat Gazar, he's in. David Riley is in. Those are all full status. Then conditional status in that 125 to 150 category, Robbie Shelton. Bud Cauley has got 14 more starts on a medical. Looks like he'll earn his card through that. And then the relegated group, Trey will have some status from a past champion status. He will have, he should get the most starts, even though he finished down at 206 on the list. He will get the most starts out of that group. Wilson Furr will be, Corn ferrying, and that's really it. I mean, and then this week is that Hero World Challenge, and Tiger hosting the Bahamas of that really select field. And I didn't realize that JC's playing and Nick Dunlap got in, and that's a big. And Seth Straka's playing. That's a big invite to get. It'd be awesome that Nick's getting to play in this tournament. It's good just for status, good for credibility. You get a lot more eyes on you to that because there's nothing else on television. Golf, right? So some more people get to learn about him, what we know about him. It's a very select field of Scotty, Obear, Wyndham, JT, Keegan, Russell Henley, Robert McIntyre, Sam Burns, all the top guys, Sung Jae, every single top guy that plays on the PGA Tour is out there. So should be something to watch this week at the Bahamas at Albany Golf Club.
Yeah, it is. It's a big event. Now, does it count as far as it's not an official PGA Tour event though, is it, Casey?
It's in affiliation with. They get world ranking points, but they don't get
okay
PGA Tour. So you go and you can juice your world ranking regardless of where you really finish. Either way, and not that that's used really anymore. It's a good way to go earn a big check, earn some notoriety, build some more sponsors. They have a lot of different big groups that come in that are affiliated with the tour. They wine and dine them that week, so it's a business week for a lot of them.
You're right, buddy. You're right. That'll be fun. That'll be absolutely fun. All right. Again, we kind of cover this just about every week now until we get back into the full swing of golf in 2025. But you still feel strongly that while there probably will be separate tours this year with PGA Tour and LIV, that we will come to some type of resolution. And by 2020, there could be more events where they play together this year. And by 2026, they might kind of be back all under one umbrella. Is that kind of what you're feeling?
I mean, I think that the more uncovers from this is the DP World Tour has actually decided, the PGA Tour really hasn't treated us. We're like the stepbrother, and they really have treated them like that a little bit. And now the DP World Tour has sort of opened the path back for LIV players, and they've all been starting to play. Well, now they're all getting status back on DP World Tour. They're going to play at more of their events. And the PGA Tour, I just read this morning an article story that's breaking on Hudson Swafford, who was trying to come back because he got hurt over on LIV. And he got his couple of years in, and he's just back, wants to come back to the PGA Tour. And he's tried to get a pass back, and they will give him a clear pass. And then you look on the other side of the aisle, the DP World Tour, all those guys that are live that have DP status are going to have status in 2025 on the DP World Tour. So they're already getting them back. The PGA Tour, I know it's a little bit more complicated, and they're trying to use their, the leverage of their tour coming together as the negotiating piece in all of these negotiations. So, I think all those PGA Tour players, they want it to happen. They know it needs to happen. They know they need Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, and those guys. Well, I know Bryson now is the needle in the golf, and everyone's recognizing that. He's turned into a really likable guy. He's a good player, and he's as the content game grows, they need his eyeballs over there. I noticed the PGA Tour, for the first time ever, lost money last year. Just came out this morning. And executive compensation, they're sitting on a huge surplus. The executive compensation rose 77%. So I would assume that they're going to be forced into a deal sooner than later. And it seems like it's getting closer and closer, and they're all meeting, but it's all over. I think the last holdup is how are they going to get those players back? And Hudson Swafford said, I understand I'm not Brooks Koepka or Bryson DeChambeau. I'm willing to pay my fine and suspension, whatever it is, but just give me a pass. He's like, but, they also need to know that Brooks and Bryson and those guys they want back, they're not going to come that way. They've been paid. They don't have to do that. And so I think the PGA Tour leadership, once again, as I was reading, getting caught up on all this additional executive compensation, which is a really bad look. Jay Monahan rose from $14 to $23 million, and they're losing players, right? It doesn't really add up.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That if for a guy like Hudson Swafford, who's kind of admitted, I made a mistake, I want to get back. You gotta work that out with that guy. You gotta let him.
That's right? It's a great guy.
You gotta find a way for him. If you're gonna let those big money guys do whatever they want to do, and here's a guy who says, "Hey man, I want to come." Yeah, you got to find a way to let him come back. I'm with you 100% there, Casey.
And
that looks petty and childish if you don't.
I think that the path that he's taken is going to help the whole thing, because he was the first to put himself out there on the PGA Tour, and it's like, hey, I'm willing to do whatever. I'll take the pass this year. Just get us all a pass back. Vern Weisberger on the DP World Tour was the first to go last year. They had a small fine, and he missed 3 events. That was his suspension. So they should find some resolution here. That guy was a winner on the tour, and he's a past champion. And they should treat all those guys like that now that they really know. But it would be them admitting to some of their own mistakes. And that guy seems to be pretty stubborn guy, Jay Monahan, that is. So I would assume that there's something going to get done. But, with them, with LIV going to the DP World Tour, it's another, form of them trying to force the PGA Tour's hand. I also saw Alaskans done. One of the top European up-and-comers, he turned down a LIV offer to just play. He made it from the Challenge Tour to DP World Tour. They're really betting big on him out there. They think he's going to be great. And he turned down the LIV contract because he thinks his agent thinks it's going to get done. And Ludwig Gobert also turned down a huge payday to stay as well because he thinks a deal is going to get done. So I think to answer your question, I think, a deal gets done. And then they're launching that TGL league that starts in January, and without LIV players. And they really have, PGA Tour has, involvement in that. And the top 2 decision makers on the PGA Tour players, Tiger and Rory, are the owners, and they need eyeballs too. And if you can bring 10 of those LIV guys back to that, and even they had their own franchise or team, you're going to automatically get more viewers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're dead on, Casey. That's for sure. All right, man. Great segment. We'll wait anxiously over the next week or so to see what happens with this college football season. But I hope when we talk next Monday that we're getting ready for Alabama to either go to Notre Dame or Penn State or Ohio State or somewhere. I think that would be so. And real quickly, my thought too, and I got to wrap it up, but I do think that this is entertainment. I've talked about it. This is a television-driven deal, and Alabama at Notre Dame, buddy, that would move the meter now. That would move it. You got to admit that would be a lot of eyeballs on that game.
What do you think? Alabama, or Notre Dame, Ole Miss at Notre Dame, Arizona State at Notre Dame, or Alabama at Notre Dame?
Alabama at Notre Dame. That is a game that's must-see TV.
Spectacle.
Alabama at Notre Dame in December, man, that's must-see TV right there. Hey, thanks, Casey.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be back to wrap it up right after this. We did not get to the DeBoer sound or the Ode sound, but that's because we had a busy show. We'll come back and wrap it up right after this.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Monday edition of The Game, we'll do the Daniel Moore good moments of the game. Alabama and Auburn. Hopefully we're recapping a victory for the Alabama Crimson Tide. We'll start at 2 p.m. We'll talk to Drew DeArmond. We'll talk to Barrett Salee. And we'll talk to Martin Houston right here on The Game. Tuscaloosa's longest running sports show on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program and
100% satisfaction and appointments set around your schedule. Give us a call for all your steam cleaning needs. 205-553-9460. Houston Hydro Steam. Quality work you can stand on.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Mostly sunny today, the high 49. Another freeze tonight, clear with the low at 26. Tomorrow, sunny and cold, the high 44. Then for Wednesday, increasingly cloudy, a chance of light rain Wednesday night, the high Wednesday at 53. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 44 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Wow, this show flew by this morning. Really fun show. Appreciate all the interaction, all the phone calls. Did not get to Kalen DeBoer or Nate Oates, but that's just because we have so much content. But we'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with another jam-packed show. And it's going to be an interesting week for Alabama sports with football dealing with signing day on Wednesday, portal opening on Saturday, waiting to find out what happens with the college football playoff, basketball, big game at North Carolina. Just a lot going on, and we're going to have it covered for you. All right, Chase, thanks for your great work. We got T-Town Sports Daily coming up next at 11 a.m. Catch me on TV tonight with your local sports on WVUA 23. And then back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the Gary Harris Show. Have a great day, everybody.